Why am I not surprised? It seems that these changes in the dietary guidelines are creating a lot more furor on the national news front. I talked a while ago about how much opposition is going to rise to this, and it seems like it's already happening. Barry sent me this little graphic yesterday, which basically talks about something that they were talking about last September. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announces that all doctors will now have to study nutrition. And along with all the other things that RFK Jr. is doing, he's just creating opportunities for more and more and more propaganda. Disguised as science, when it's basically only opinion. Here's a Facebook article, doctors to receive nutrition training. And it says Robert F. Kennedy has announced plans to require all doctors to receive formal training in nutrition, saying modern medicine may need to focus more on food, prevention, and long-term health. Well, what's wrong with that? Well, are we talking about continuing education? Are we talking about requiring doctors to seek out training to contradict all the false stuff they were taught for the last 50 years? Are we talking about requiring medical schools to change their curriculums in what they teach these doctors? He argues that many chronic illnesses are closely linked to diet, lifestyle, and poor nutrition, yet doctors often receive little education on these topics during medical school. The proposal is meant to shift healthcare towards prevention rather than just treatment, with nutrition playing a bigger role in patient care. Supporters say this could help doctors better guide patients on managing weight, diabetes, heart disease, and other diet-related conditions. Well, at least they're admitting that diabetes and heart disease are indeed diet-related conditions. They believe stronger nutrition education could improve overall public health and reduce reliance on medication alone. Wow. Makes a lot of sense. Considering diabetes and heart disease are responsible for the majority of medical care in this country right now. And they admit in this article that they're responsible only because of a bad diet. Critics caution that medical training, here we go, critics, and who are the critics? Well, we know, caution that medical training is already intense and packed with essential subjects. And what would those be? What drugs to prescribe for these diet-caused illnesses? That's essential. And adding more requirements could increase pressure on future doctors. Poor babies. They also stress that nutrition advice must be based on solid science, not trends. The debate reflects a growing interest in preventative care and how modern medicine can evolve to keep people healthier for longer. Same old bullshit. Besides that, the new dietary guidelines are causing an awful lot of news every day as the opposition, which is all the big food companies and pharmaceutical companies, vegans, vegetarians, anti-meat crowd, climate change activists, and all the rest of them are visually ramping up their propaganda to make sure that this thing does not get legs. So I found this article in Science News. Now, you'd think a publication called Science News would be actually talking about science. Silly me. Advice emphasizes eating protein and full-fat dairy while reducing ultra-processed foods. Sounds good to me. Now they got a picture of a ribeye. How about that? A picture of a ribeye and some fruit. Yes, sir. And Tina Hessman wrote, American Guidelines have got an overhaul. The DHS and the Department of Agriculture unveiled a new pyramid on January 7th. The guidelines put meat and full-fat dairy, olive oil, and vegetables at the broad top of an inverted triangle, while grains and fruits fell to the bottom. Okay, so far so good. So far so good. Many experts had feared that HHS Secretary Robert Kennedy would raise the cap on the amount of saturated fats recommended in a diet, but the guidelines still specify that no more than 10% of calories should come from saturated fats. We're still stuck with that, my friends. That's a travesty. Those of us in our community that are getting healthier and healthier are eating 60 to 70% of our calories from saturated fats, and no percent of our calories from trans fats or seed oils. Now, many of the fats that we do eat on carnivore are not saturated fats. They're monounsaturated fats, which have always shown to be very healthy as well. If you eat more pork, you'll probably be eating a lot more monounsaturated fats. So the fact is, even if you did limit your saturated fat intake to 10, 20, or 30%, you can still very easily eat your total fat content about 60 to 70%, because not all the fats that we carnivores eat are saturated. But I think that 10% limit was a political concession to those in power and who finance half of what's going on. Now, here comes a lie. These type of fats have been linked to health problems such as heart disease, obesity, and type 2 diabetes. And it's exactly the opposite. Exactly the opposite. Eating more saturated fat, and we're proof of this, has actually shown us to reduce heart disease, lose weight, and eliminate diabetes. There are no studies, valid studies that aren't marketing nonsense, that actually support the claim made by the article here. It's angering. It's angering. Now, ultra-processed foods, including refined grains, are getting the blame for those and other chronic diseases. Well, rightly so. And for the first time since the guidelines debuted in 1980, they don't set daily limits for alcohol, which has been linked to various cancers. Who is this girl? Who is this Tina? Tina, what world are you living in, my dear? Come on. I've heard alcohol linked to all kinds of things. I've never heard it linked to cancer. Not once ever. Not once ever. The most common problem in an alcoholic is going to be liver problems, cirrhosis. So these people write drivel and nonsense constantly, but The average person sees science news, reads this stuff, and this is where they get their facts from. Unfortunately, Google also indexes all of the propaganda just as readily as it indexes any fact or truth. And when you Google something or use AI for something, you're just as likely to get propaganda from AI or Google as the real story, just like I did this morning when I Googled this, new dietary guidelines, and this was the first article referred by them to me. This is just the beginning, and the fight has just begun. Like the fight against climate change. And on this day, when Donald Trump has withdrawn the United States from virtually every organization that promotes major changes according to climate change, we keep seeing this kind of propaganda, both in the climate change area, in the food area. I saw a story this morning on the news that the state of Massachusetts wants to limit the number of miles that you can drive your car in Massachusetts. They want to make a law like they have in California and Oregon to limit your freedom and the amount of miles you can drive in the name of climate change. I think we need to wake up. Anyway, I found these things interesting, and I just thought I'd let you know and put together a quick video. And after you've watched it, if you've watched it this far, then you can take the rest of the day off, as long as you eat meat.